It's a little bit of improvisation. I have not really rehearsed this, but I think I know how an agency works. So it's maybe nice for you to just let me speak a little bit about how agencies are structured and who does what and all that. Is that okay for you? So it's not really prepared, but I think I know. Huh? So you have different departments in an agency. You have a account department. These are the commercial people. You have a creative department with the creative people. You have a strategic department mostly. Some agencies you have and some agencies you don't, but you have a strategic department. And then you have a production department. And nowadays there are two sorts of productions. We call them online production or offline production. I'm going to maybe take you through the process. Because there will be clients here this afternoon so that you understand when they intervene at which moment. The client calls, Golden Pages, Gouden Gids, Page d'Or. She will be here this afternoon. She calls us and she says, oh Karen, we need a campaign towards the sellers. For Golden Pages, you have buyers, users. You want to find a plumber, so you go to you are the user. And you have sellers, namely the plumbers. And their task is to bring the sellers and the buyers closer. We agree. So their task was, we want to really position ourselves towards sellers as a digital company, because we used to have that thick book, and sellers keep on identifying us with that thick book. So how are we going to position ourselves as a digital partner who delivers digital services to those people who think still have this thick book in mind when they think about Page d'Or? This could be a brief. This was a brief, actually. So then the account person, it's the group account director mainly. So an account department, you have in Happiness, it's these names. In other agencies, other names, but it's the same principle. You've got very experienced people, and they are client service directors or group account directors. They are responsible for a group of clients in an agency. They work with account managers or account executives or project managers or producers. Every agency has its own name, but those people are the ones who take over in day-to-day with their clients. So once an idea is approved, they will do it on a day-to-day basis. And then you often have what we call at the agency traffic managers, and they do the whole traffic internal when it comes to production, really. Okay, so in this case, the group account director most probably will go with the account manager, probably, and maybe the creative director, and maybe the strategic director, in this case me. We would go there if it's a very important campaign, what we call at Happiness Concept 1, but this is pure happiness. Concept 1 is when there's a white page and a complete new campaign has to be rolled out. We call it Concept 1. Why do we give it that name? Because then everybody knows if it's Concept 1, Karen is there as strategy director, or else, which is my colleague for other clients. The creative director has to be there, the group account director has to be there, and the concept providers will be involved because they will get the brief for Concept 1s. So if it's a Concept 1, we will be there 3, 4 with the client, and they give the brief. We ask questions, so we get the client brief. Once we get the client brief, the group account director will edit like you saw last week, a concept providing brief, and we'll fill out the boxes. They will check it with me and Nick or Philippe, and when we say it's okay, we ask the concept providers around the table, and in ideal circumstances, they come down in the meeting room, we all speak and talk about that brief. Myself, the creative director, the group account director, and the concept providers. So imagine you would be around the table, and we would brief you. So we would have transformed the client's brief in a creative brief. And that can be different, because the client will say, I want to position ourselves as digital partners, and then we could have an angle to that. That's quite different, because we already thought through the whole brief. So we brief you. You get, depends, I always tell my creative directors that you have to get at max 4 hours and then come back, because I think it's there immediately, and we have to check. But that's very different in lots of agencies. I like to keep the rhythm in the creative process and to check quickly with you whether the brief is right or not. A good creative director and group account director will come and ask you, will verify whether you understood the brief right. I would come to you and say, how did you understand the brief? What do you think you have to do after this briefing? Because sometimes it's not that clear. Sometimes we think it's clear, but it's not clear. So good people will come and ask you before you start working. When you start working, depends on the agency. Sometimes you will see the creative director after 2, 3, 4 days. With Happiness, you will see him very quickly because we want to be tuck, 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 short on the ball. Feel, no, this is not the right direction. This is the right direction. Tuck, tuck, tuck. When we have more or less 2 weeks to go to the client with what we call a concept strategy and concept providing presentation. That means that we will see internally, we will have maybe met, not me always, you will see the creative director every 3, 4 hours. You will see me in the meetings every 3 days to say yes, or else the other strategic director and the group account director. So, but with the creative director, you will meet very often. And then there are internal sessions planned where the whole Concept One group is there. These sessions are about 2, 3 in 2 weeks. And then we go, we say, okay, now that's it. We say, okay, that's a nice idea, that's a nice insight, but how does it work? So you think that we could do that, but how would that work, actually? Who would win in this activation, and how can they win in it? Think it a little bit through, think about the methodology. And so we will pick out ideas, and then we will ask you, the ones who have that ideas, to work it out further on different levels according to the campaign that you came up with. You will work further on it, and there will be about 2, 3 to 4 concepts that we go to with the client with a clear recommendation. And this is what we call the strategy and concept providing presentation. It's we try not to do layouts. We try not to already make pictures and all that. We just try because we want to focus on the idea and probably the headline or the creative line, the campaign line already, more than on the execution. So that's why, but then sometimes in agencies they do pictures and all that. This is very different from the philosophy. We don't like that at all. We try to go with drawings, a headline, so that we talk idea and not execution. The client will say maybe no. So who's there at the client? At that moment for Concept One, there is mainly the marketing director. The boss of Emily will be there as well, or Emily herself, and she will then have to talk it through with the boss afterwards, which is very inconvenient because will she say it in the same way? Will she pass the right messages? Will she argue it? She will already have her preference. Will she sell her preference? So we always try to have at least a marketing director already in the meeting, but it's not sure that you can have him. So then you present, and or there are internal presentations still to go, or they're all there, and they decide, okay, we go for that concept. Then, if they say we go for that concept, then often we have to go and present it to the CEO to have his agreement on the campaign. So that's already Emily, she will have her favorite. She will go to Laurent, he will have his favorite maybe, and Emily will already have changed it a little bit, Laurent will change it a little bit, and then the CEO will maybe change it and will ask to come again. I mean, this is the circle, until the CEO says yes. And then we end what we call our Concept One phase, and then we go to Concept Two, which is the execution of that idea. And it's about channel providing and execution. We will then decide with the media agency, which is an external partner. So the media agency will then say, oh, we have 1 million euros. So that means that for that campaign, and that's the target, it's a B2B target, it's a business target, it's the sellers. So radio is a good campaign because it's mainly plumbers and electricians and all that, and they listen to radio when they're working. So radio is a good campaign, is a good media. Bannering online, because we are digital, we want to position ourselves as digital. So we are going to use digital media, and maybe if we're lucky, there's a little bit of TV. Anyway, we will then see, then we will really start executing the concept that we already will have told the client. If we do radio, that's the big idea on radio. This would be the bannering idea. We would do an activation towards the sellers. That would be more or less the idea with more or less the methodology. So even not knowing that these media will be used afterwards, we will show the client that we have a real autoroute as we call it, that in whatever media we go, the central concept can be worked out in everything is media. So he will feel, okay, that's good. But then he will say, now I want it in radio, in bannering, in postering, I need an emailing, I need postering, for example. And then the crafters, sometimes they are the same as the concept providers. Sometimes the concept providers give le bâton, the estafette. They give it to the crafters who will start crafting the radio and putting the right words on it. I can imagine that the radio idea comes from, in this case, for Golden Pages, it could be, what if we would now thank those people for driving the Belgian economy and that they can do it because we deliver them the digital services. They don't have to take care of that because we do that for them, and in return they make the economy work well. That was more or less the idea. And we will do a thank you campaign on radio. And then the crafters, which were not the same in this case, they will start writing this thank you campaign in radio commercials. That's what we call scripts. We will then see the actual scripts. Maybe we will already have presented 1 or 2 in the concept campaign, but now we needed 20 because we said we're going to talk to the plumbers. At that time, we're going to try to reach them at the moment we can reach them, because we're going to talk to the hairdressers at night because they've been tired from standing up the whole day. We're going to, at night, we're going to have a campaign to the bakers because they're there at night to bake nice bread while we are doing their internet services. So we think of many, many, many professions, which is a part of the idea. But then in this concept to execution phase, we will really have an Excel sheet and say, okay, the plumbers are at that moment of the day, and we do that with the creatives. So when will we communicate to whom? And then, of course, when we have this plan, it will be given to you or to the crafters, and then you have to start writing out those 20 different commercials to those 20 different professions in this case. 20 different banners that will be on different sites at different moments, again, in the same philosophy and idea, okay? And the crafters will work it out. Sometimes it's the concept providers, but mostly at Happiness it is not. Okay, and then the client said, okay, I like the scripts, I like the layouts of the banners, so who will have done the layouts of the banners? That's probably the graphic design department. So the concept providers will know, I want these banners to look like this, and they make a little sketch, and then they go to the graphic designers, and they actually make the banners. Sometimes we need we need photos in the banners. So that's the production already. So it's still in the execution phase. We will show layouts to the client with headlines, and that's the picture, or we draw when we don't have the picture, and we tell them that's what the picture is going to be. And he will have a presentation with all the scripts, with all the banners, intentions, and already graphic design. The poster, the graphic design, and the idea really worked out in all the words, in the body copy. And when that's done, then execution phase, concept 2 phase is done, and we go into production. Namely, we have to contact, and that's then our production house, or sometimes the account people. They look for a radio production house or a production department. That depends in which agency you are, because not all agency has a production department, and then the account people will do that. But then it's somebody in the agency will call a radio studio and will ask for voices. That's what we call casting. So we will see what the casting is. We will get back 3, 4, or 5 voices, and then we give a selection to the client, and he will then say, okay, that's the voice I will take. So we have our radio voice. We have a timing from the production. We have a budget from the production house. And when that's all done and the client says, okay, then they will be recorded, and we ask the voice to come in the studio, and we will record the radio commercials. The client is often in the studio with the copywriters. So the one who has crafted the radio commercial will also be in the studio to direct the comedians. And then the client, when the client says it's okay, the crafter says it's okay. Normally it has to go to the creative director, who has to say, Nick will have to say, yes, finally it's okay, and they will call him, it's on the phone. And when Nick says it's okay, then Emily will have to take the radio commercials, will have to let them hear to Laurent, her boss, and the CEO again. And when they say, okay, then it's delivery, and we deliver them to the radio stations. For the banners, there's a photo in there, so we need to contact, it's again the production house or the account people at the agency, depends. Need to contact a photographer, and we get maybe 3 different photographer books at that moment to see, okay, which photographer is the best to do this task. Because we need a poster, we need all those photos in emailing, in poster, in banners, so the photos have to be good. So we will see 3 different books, and the creative director with the art director at that moment, the crafter, you have the crafter, copywriter, crafter, art director, will decide which photographer they're going to choose. They will then choose, that's the photographer, we like his intention, we like the way he sees the whole campaign, and then he will come, then we will have a what we call a pre-PPM and a PPM. A pre-PPM is a pre-production meeting, and the only difference from a production, post-production, pre-production, it's a pre-production meeting. And the only difference with the PPM is that it's without the client. So we will first have a few pre-PPMs in the agency without the client, where the photographer or the production house comes back with the casting. And we need 3 people in the photo, so we will need to select 3 people. He will come back with the stylism. What are they going to wear? They will come back with the interior. Where are we going to shoot? So location, casting, stylism, light. How is the light going to be? Do we need sunshine? Do we need fake light? Do we need real light? So all that will be decided in the pre-PPMs, and when internally the creative director, the art director, the concept provider, the group account director, and the account manager agree, then we do a PPM with the client. And we present this all to the client. We say, okay, you already chose that photographer, you agreed on a budget, so here is the casting, here is the style, the clothing, here is the location, and we will present him everything. He will say mostly yes, he will change clothes, he will want another cravat, whatever. And then, okay, then we go to the next phase. After the pre-production meeting, there is the production, which is the actual shoot. So we will start shooting the photos, and we will have a selection of where we will have made maybe 250 pictures, and the concept provider, the art director, will then look which selection they will going to present to the client. The creative director, the group account director give their okay on that, and we present that to the client. The client will say, I want to see all the pictures. At the end, there's one picture that we will take, and that picture we will then put in the layout that goes to the graphic design, who will put it in the layout with the right headline that you will have written, with the right headline and the body copy, and at that moment, that's the production, the ad is finished. That layout will go back to the client. There will be a stamp, we call that happiness for approval, so everybody has to, in each step, has to sign off their agreement so that there are no mistakes to the client. You sign, okay, this is okay, it goes to the client signs off, and then we can deliver it, or we can start printing, or then it goes to our production print producer, which is Pascal, and he will get the files, and he will go to the printer, and he will print the posters, for example. That's offline. Now, online, it's a bannering campaign, and we have 40 different versions on 40 different sites and 40 different formats. And so we will brief the online production house, which is for happiness in Vietnam. It's Bliss Interactive. They do that. And there you have the programmers who will produce, and they will get the pictures, they will get the layout, they will get your sentences, and they will then start programming the banners. And then our account people will go back and forth, and when we have internal previews, and when the preview is okay for you, for the creative director, for the account director, then it goes to the client. The client gets the preview online, and he will see all the banners. He will check, give his agreement on the banners, and then we will deliver the banners, and so forth, so on. Okay, so this is account, creative, production, strategic partner, who is more the strategic director, who is mostly there in concept 1, and afterwards she or he is not involved. I'm almost never involved in concept 2 or production. Only in PPMs, or only in what we call, for film, for example, you have the pre-production meeting. After the pre-production meeting, there's the shooting. And after the shooting, there's one hugely important meeting, which is the offline edit, where you see the first edit, montage, the first edit of 30 seconds, and that you have to approve because it's on that edit that they will then do the post-production, which is l'étalonnage, the color grading, will be done on that edit. The supers, the copy will be put on there, the voice will be put on there. So it's very important that that offline edit is approved by everybody whom it concerns and who has to give their agreements in the agency. So it's quite a lot. The whole creative concept one it's about creativity and can be really crazy, and there are only deadlines are there, of course, but then when it's production, it's really processed. It becomes une vraie machine, quoi. Une vraie machine de guerre. So that's mostly it, yeah?
Are you open to share some numbers with us? I mean, what's the budget, or what?
Oh yeah, of course. But it's very, very, very different from client to client. For example, we made commercials. We produced commercials for Toyota of 200,000 euros because they had to be very, very, very qualitative, and it was when there were these recalls of all those cars for Toyotas. You must remember that. And that moment, the client said, "What do we have to do?" I said, "Please don't defend yourself; it's useless. But go with a campaign that talks again about quality, but then if you talk about quality, you need to have a very qualitative production." So that was produced in the UK, in Portugal, but with a UK director, and that costed 200,000. Now we're making a small, more tactical ad for the same Auris, but to sell a pack. So it's more a commercial tactical ad, and it costs. It's also TV. Then we have a budget of 45,000. So it's very different, but we know it beforehand. So it will be part of the brief. If it's not, you have to really demand it. Because sometimes you can have fantastic ideas, but with a lousy production, it's useless. So it's very different. Are there other questions? Yeah?
How many days would you be working on at the same time?
Oh, yeah. We have status meetings, and we have status meetings. They're divided in concept 1 and concept 2 per person. So every Monday you get a planning, and you will see that's what I have to do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in concept 1 and concept 2. So you get this planning on a Monday, and then you can talk about the account saying this is not possible. And I think maybe on 2 concept campaigns and 2 or 3 execution campaigns at the same time. But it's good to execute. To have this swap, because then it's another brain you have to use. 2 concept providing briefs, and maybe 2 or 3 other briefs that are in execution for you. Yeah, I would say. But it can be 3 and 2 or what. But it's a lot of work. It's where you really have to work hard. Yeah. We love this, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is our right to do so. If we have a great idea and we go to a prospect, like a talking tree was done like that, yeah. Oh, no, you have to then say this is happiness idea, and this kind of things you can protect. You can say this is because they at that moment they don't have the right to use your idea because you didn't sign a contract with them. Yes. No, you can't copyright an idea, but you can't. If we can prove that we showed them that idea before, and he then does it, then you have a case in. This is cheating. I mean, this is stealing. This is something very different. Yeah, even if you can't copyright it, you can show a. Yeah. But it will not be an easy one, huh? And you have very, 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 very. The Let It Ring campaign that we did will be one. Huge amount of lines with that. It was for ouders van verongelukte kinderen, and I will maybe show it later. And it's been done now lately. It's been put in stage 90% the same idea, and by Volkswagen in Beijing in the cinema room. And I tried to sue them, but it's China, so it's impossible to sue them. But it's horrible if you see that, because the people who did that were 2 young guys. They came from school. They were weirdos, and you will see the commercials. It's shot second by second. You will see why, and they just took it over. They just took it, and we couldn't do anything. But normally there is enough amount of respect. But I think it's gonna be very different in the future because everything is going to be open, and there's a very open culture in the 3.0. We haven't talked a lot about big data and the consequences of big data for creative. I have a very clear view on that, but we're not going to go into that now because it will stay. I mean, nothing really changes. The concept will be key and the text will be key, but there are just much more content that will have to be delivered with big data and the whole customer journey that you will have to follow. But okay, but in this 3.0 world, everything is open. So ideas, people start thinking they can just take ideas just like that. And as you cannot protect them, okay, it's awful, it's not very nice. You can have a press release. Journalists, in my case, lots of journalists in Belgium wrote about it, talked about it. Frédéric Brébant, who's coming this afternoon, he did a whole piece on the radio on it, but that's all. You can't do anything with it. Yeah. Yeah, I always think so. If you do something good, it comes back to you. When you do something bad, it comes back to you. That's absolutely true. I really believe in that very much in life and at work. Something else? Shall I? Yes. Is fit time? Yeah. You want to see? Let it ring, just to see it. Oh, yeah, I have it. I don't. I'll show it this afternoon. Or you can go on the website.